Markets continuing to rally. Look ahead to Jackson Hole. Few interesting stocks, including AMD, Estee Lauder in the news. We're going to break it all down for you today and tackle today. Joined with my brother Matt. This is Mark, the Justice Brothers, looking at a V-shaped rally in the markets. Matt, this rally has been incredibly strong. One might argue we might get a little bit of a pause here as traders look ahead at Jackson Hole. We previewed the Jackson Hole event on the Trading Justice podcast yesterday. Check that out. But Matt, what do your technical eyes see as we look ahead towards Jackson Hole?
Yeah, Jackson Hole is coming up really, really soon, and we talked about it in the Trading Justice podcast earlier yesterday. So definitely check that out on any podcasting app, obviously on our YouTube channel as well. But for today, Mark, the S&P is continuing its charge, like you talked about, trying to get right back up into that all-time high. And yes, I would make the argument that technically you are slightly overextended in the recovery, and you would expect a little bit of this market recovery to slow down, given the fact that you do not have a tremendous amount in front of us until you start getting into Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of this week. And then obviously the most important event that we'll talk about here in a second is Jay Powell's speech on Friday. So you got an environment where not a lot of news coming into the market. Obviously, you have the DNC this week at the Democratic Convention. That's certainly going to be a lot of eyes on that, the same way with the RNC last month. But from a pure economic standpoint, there's just not a lot in the news until you start getting into Wednesday. And so, yeah, Mark, a little bit overextended here on the S&P. You would expect a little some pattern development, given the fact you're a little bit elevated from that 9 EMA and you don't have a tremendous amount of information. But the market's also hard charging back up into the all-time high here as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, it has just been consistently ferocious price action. And as you mentioned, Rap, we got a really light economic calendar this week at the start of the week. Couple interesting earnings reports that we'll report on during the week, but we don't have any major economic reports, not even any secondary ones until Wednesday, where we have the Fed minutes. Now, I can promise you nobody is going to care about the Fed minutes when Jay Powell is speaking. Oh, I don't know. What is it? 42 hours. Yeah. 42 hours after the release, exactly. 44 hours. Like Jay Powell speaking in a couple of days is nobody's going to care what the Fed said, 3 weeks ago. Right. But then we got a little batch of data, unemployment claims, some flash manufacturing and services PMI heading into the big event. This is a very back half heavy week, isn't it?
It is, but Mark, you look at the FOMC minutes on Wednesday, and you're absolutely right. Who's going to care about that when we get some new conversations out of Powell just in 42 hours from then? I think you can say the same thing about initial claims, manufacturing PMI, flash services PMI. I think you can say the same thing about new home sales. The data this week is not important. I don't want to say it's not important, but
it's secondary.
Expecting something big out of Powell on Friday at Jackson Hole as they are going into their cuts, Mark. And we talked about this in the Trading Justice podcast. There's a few speeches at Jackson Hole that were precursors into major Fed policy changes. We're going through a major Fed policy change over the course of the next few months. September, December are certainly live cut zones. Does Powell indicate something more there? Does he indicate something that to the market that we're not prepared for? Powell on Friday is a very important moment. It's a speech at Jackson Hole, and those speeches get remembered not just for this moment in time, but over time as well. So I would say this, you could basically say the same thing about the Thursday data that you say about the Wednesday data because of the importance of Powell on Friday morning.
Yeah, no, it is. It is going to be one of those individual stock story weeks, technical weeks, how you want to position yourself into Jackson Hole. Obviously, we will detail the technical saga throughout the week here on Tackle Today in the Trading's Lounge, but there's going to be some individual stock news. Earnings season might be officially over, Matt, but there's still going to be some trickling in. And then, of course, individual stock news like we got in AMD today.
Yeah, we did get some stock news here today out of AMD, Estee Lauder, General Motors. It wasn't a big stock news day. It's Monday morning going into the DNC with Jackson Hole on Friday, and so individual stock stories are going to be the kind of the name of the game over the course of the next couple days. Here it's AMD, EL, and General Motors. First and foremost, AMD. AMD comes out and they basically announce the acquisition of ZT Systems, which is going to enhance their data center business, which is a direct competitor to the juggernaut linchpin, kingpin of all of it, and that's called NVIDIA. And so AMD is obviously targeting market share here out of NVIDIA. It's a good move out of AMD. We'll see if they can make it an efficient move over time. But as for today, market buying into the move a little bit. Estee Lauder did report earnings on this Monday morning and a mixed report out of EL. They came out with a good beat against EPS, but a very cautious guidance update here. So mixed report out of Estee Lauder, and then General Motors. Negative news for a lot of people that work at General Motors is they're laying off over 1,000 people globally, including 600 jobs at their Detroit Tech campus. That's all salaried positions, and it's a strategic move to streamline software services division. Describe it however you want. It is a 1,600 layoffs out of General Motors here today. Uh, tough news for people, obviously. Typically, when a company does some degree of restructuring, they typically get a little bit of a bid, and General Motors certainly did here today, but only a muted response off that news here, Mark, as they do have some significant overhead right around that 46 handle. Very similar to the market conversation where you're expecting a little bit of secondary pattern development. I think you can basically state the same thing about GM here at 46. You would be expecting some pattern development here at 46. A breakout of 46 looks pretty good all the way up to 50. So keep an eye on GM right around that 46 handle. On the AMD front, AMD obviously getting a bid here today and obviously has some challenging overhead. AMD is in a recovery stage. It sold off a little bit more aggressively than the other semiconductors in the market. It's not the best looking from a pure technical perspective. You still got some work to do, but as you start to work up a little bit and start to get into some of those more challenging areas of resistance, I would say everything that you've achieved so far, AMD, is the easy part of the journey. Now you start getting into the complicated part of the journey around that 155 level. A lot of resistance around 155, the 50 period, the 200 period. Obviously, previous pivots are around that 155 level as well. Keep an eye on that. And the third stock story of the day here today was obviously Estee Lauder, as they have just been in some real big pain recently. Very consistent downtrend here. Was it enough to buck that downtrend? Was it enough to start getting Estee Lauder into reversal type situations? I'm not sure about that. This is a tough look from a technical perspective. You're certainly going to need to see a little bit more slowing momentum, a little bit of a deeper retracement, positive signs, but you work up into 100 and then you start to have a reversal conversation. As of right now, a little bit of slowing momentum with the bearish retracement, and that's what we got for stocks in the news here today.
Matt, my commodity board is very frisky on individual stocks. We do see some, price action in silver and copper, very constructive patterns. Individual stocks are doing really good. But the story for me is still that breakout on gold on Friday. That still remains the chart I can't get my eye off of due to its technical beauty.
It's the weekly chart on gold is such a beautiful picture. There's no doubt about that. Very consistent. The daily chart has been a little bit choppy in the environment, and you can certainly understand that the environment's been difficult. V-shape sell-off and recovery in the S&P, and gold's just like, all right, you guys. It's like gold looks at the stock market as the kids. Gold's the parent, and the stock market's the kids, and the gold's just like, all right, guys, go have your fun. Go have your fun. We're going to sit down on the bench at Disney and watch the people go by. That's kind of what gold does here. It does not care about the craziness in the stock market. Very consistent and a beautiful, beautiful multiple time frame breakout. On the industrial metal side of the equation, tracking a couple short-term reversals in silver and copper. Silver's attempting a V-shaped recovery here, breaking out of that 50-period moving average, getting very frisky coming from the low point in silver. On the copper side of the equation, copper's fighting up into that 4-2 handle. We've talked about the 4-2 handle. That's kind of the overhead resistance level against the reversal we've been tracking there as well. Both of these, copper and silver, are running on the same gasoline right now. That has been that's a little abnormal for these two in recent history, but it's good to see them kind of running back on the same gasoline. Now let's see if we can get that head and shoulders formation here. I would love a little bit of a base and or a head and shoulders formation on either copper or silver. Both look pretty good right here.
This is setting up to be a trader's market for the next little stretch with a lot of choices for traders. That tends to be a good thing. Traders like choice. And we are going to chronicle those choices in the Traders Lounge every day. Come be a part of an amazing hour that is amazing, part of an amazing community. Sign up for that 15-day free trial, tackletrading.com.